I'm going to say 72.
No, you passed me, but anyway, I'll be 7 in April 15th.
April 15th. April 14th. No.
Well, no,
No,
that's
April 14th.
tax day.
Now, are you a lifelong resident of Cleveland?
Yeah, my family's or Earls. They're out Harrison Pike. You know, you've seen the Earls Cemetery on the right,
Yeah.
big silos down in the field. That's my grandfather had that.
What was his name?
Lou Earls,
What did he do?
farmer. And the good one on him, we was me and the wife was trying to borrow some money from Cleveland Bank and Trust years ago to buy a house and or buy a trailer. And the guy said, "Let me tell you one on your grandfather." Said he had a gang of boys. Said, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah, I know." He said he came in, wanted to borrow $50,000. And I said, "Okay." He said he paid that back in a year. He didn't tell me the date of when it was, but that was in the 70s when we tried to borrow money for the trailer. So, no telling, that could have been 40 years or 50 years before.
That was a lot of money then.
That was a lot of money then, and paid it back in a year off of farming. But cattle, corn, tobacco, cotton, you name it. That's what
Now, his last name was Earls,
E-A-R-L-S.
and your last name is
Earls.
Earls too. Okay.
Yeah.
Elmer
Elmer.
Earls.
Yeah.
You have quite a following.
Oh, really?
You really do. Now, I understand that you sell things. Among things, are these sandals?
Yes, my sandals that I make, I've made them for roughly 25 years, but over the years they've got better because better equipment, better rivets. When you find an upgrade and you can make.
Is this the pair to that one?
Yep.
It's
In other words, they're tie-dye sandals. So
when you say tie,
tie-dye.
so that's when they put it in tied and dyed them. Is that where they get that expression?
Yep. In other words, it used to, they more or less put rubber bands around it and all that. Example of doing a tie-dye shirt is you take a stretch of shirt out on the table, a t-shirt, stick your hand in the middle of it, and start spinning. And if you do it real nice and easy and kind of put your hand beside it, it'll turn out to be a disc. So you take your rubber bands and you put the rubber band across it this way. Then you take bottles of dye and you do every individual quarter a different color. Then when it's spiraled, it gives
What was the point of that?
somebody's artistic expression.
So
Something
these
different.
so these are these tie-dyed or are they colored?
They're colored leather, but the thing is, when my buddy, and his name is Michael Wallen, he runs his business is called Groovy Strings because he started out doing hemp jewelry. Mm-hmm. Then he started doing tie-dyes. And over the years,
Shirts.
tie-dye shirts. Mm-hmm. Then I told him I wanted, after he found the good dyes and everything, he changed dye people and t-shirt people and all this over the years quite a few times until he found the dyes that he wanted. And so when his colors really got bright, this is his work.
Where's he out of?
This is his work.
Where's he out of?
He's in Ohio, up, I forget the name of the town. It's right up close to the top of Ohio. He's about, he says 15, 20 minutes from a park that is called Nelson Ledges. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, they have a lot of music festivals there. And the guy that he met makes Grateful Dead still you face, skeleton face, out of glass. And Michael's met him, and he wound up, moved in with the guy, so Michael's now learning how to do glass. And so he'll go set up over there, but when I first met him, he came in my shop 10, 11 years ago with one foot bandaged up from operation.
Did you know him then?
I didn't know him when he walked in my shop.
Why did he come into your shop?
To buy beads and to find hemp.
So you're that well known?
Well, in other words, I was on the web. So his mother was searching and says, "Oh, there's another shop in town called Hippie Beach. We go there." And he walked in, and the thing is, with us, you walk in, we start talking, and people's like, we've had some say, "You're not like other shops." And I'm, "What do you mean?" I said, "You will talk to us. You act like you've known us. Hey, you're a kind soul. That's all that matters. If you got an attitude."
So you make, what else do you make?
I do hemp jewelry. I do the sandals.
You make it all yourself?
I've got, well, I don't do all the tie-dye. Well, like I said, Michael does my tie-dyes. I ordered these Tams. I've got Grateful Dead shirts, posters, coasters, keychains, tapestries.
So you like bring them in, put them together, add your twist?
I bring it in, and in other words, it's just like a retail store. But I'm a Grateful Dead, music merchandise, like T-shirts and all this. We got some Leonard Skinner, Allman Brothers, Grateful Dead mainly. But the thing is, Grateful Dead puts out more merchandise than any other band ever. But I do sculptures. I have done pottery. I've made.
But now let's go back to how you got there.
Okay.
Your grandfather was a farmer.
Yep.
So bring us all the way up to
Well, my grandpa.
making these.
So the thing is, with the farming part, we lived within a tenth of a mile down the road from my grandfather. So we go up and hang around in the dairy barn and all this. But the thing is, I've seen my uncles get kicked too many times by them cows. And I'm like, no, no,
Yeah.
I don't want none of this. And but then we moved down on Bancroft Road. We're right close to the side of the interstate, south side, where Harriman Road runs, where they're going to put the industrial park back there. And we grew up there, and I played with cars. And then
When you say cars, what do you mean?
working on cars and all this. Growing up, if you had a problem with a car, you asked a mechanic or somebody how you fix this, and well, if I told you, you wouldn't know anyway. So you learn to do it yourself, and the thing is, when you couldn't get nobody to do it, like I said, you learned on your own. And over the years, then I went and took mechanic training at Athens Botech School, and then I learned to weld under my shade tree. And then guy came over to my house one day and said they need somebody at Cleveland Machine. And I said, okay. So I walked in the door down there, and I said, Bud Holmes sent me, said you need somebody to work. They led me to a drill press.
About how old were you?
21.
No thoughts of college? That was,
I dropped out of high school.
everybody did then, I guess, right? Or a lot of
Yeah,
them?
probably a lot did. The thing is, when you could get nobody to help you, what you needed to know to be able to pass the class. So the thing is, like, oh, please, you go to work somewhere. but I worked in a stove foundry, Cleveland Enamel, for years. And then I went and took auto mechanics. Then, like I said, I tried working in a shop with auto mechanics, and I found out I didn't like most people's attitude. So I'm like, I don't know enough of this. But I do mechanic work at my house, and people says, this didn't work before. I'm like, what do you mean? Well, it wouldn't go in park, or it wouldn't do this, and I'm like, I fixed it the way it's supposed to be fixed. So I was picky on that point. But when I went to Cleveland Machine, they led me in the door to a drill press. Foreman's like 6'6", 250 pounds. He's got arms on him like this, and I'm 30 pounds lighter than what I am now. So I was a little fella. Yeah. So the 2-bolt flange bearing, tapered, wide in the middle and tapered down on the ends, and they was flashing in the hole. So the biggest point was drill, open the hole up where a boat could go through it. So this big guy standing there with a piece of wood holding the flange bearing down, and he'd go right through it, flip it around, and go right through it. And man, he just like me, little as I am, I don't have the strength he's got or the height. So I'm trying to hold it down. That bit would catch that little thin sliver of metal, and it'd suck up the drill bit. And I'm like, so you cut it off and you unscrew it off of it, and you do that 2 or 3, 4 times. And you're like, finally you might get a hole and drill through it. And I'm looking now, I'm like, there's a bandsaw over there, and I said, So I took that stick that guy had, went over to the bandsaw and cut me a notch in it. I walked back over there, put it against the bearing, put it against my belt, and leaned into it, and I could go right through it, flip it around, go right through it, never sucked any more up the drill. Then, boss came over, and this was within the first half an hour I was there. The boss came over and said, Frazee said, you're not doing that the way he showed you. He's holding it this way, I'm holding it this way. Main object is to get the hole cleared out, we could put a boat in it. But anyway, when he said that about, you ain't done this the way Frazee showed you. And I said, I can't hold it. And he said, I said, but if you want me to do it the way Frazee showed me, I'll be glad to. But if one of them bearings sucks up the drill, the bit breaks off, the part flies through the air, hits something or hits somebody, I said, but you tell me how you want me to do this. Do it the way you were doing it. So I made the foreman mad the first day. I had that kind of conversation with the boss the first day, like I said, within the first half an hour.
Are you a kind of a rebel by spirit, or would you say you're a conformist, or what? Way I tell things is, it's just like somebody's having a problem with something. I can walk up and I'm like, I'll tell you how to fix that. I see what they need to do or what needs to be done with it. And I said, if I would have had the help in school, I said I could either been a lawyer or an engineer than what I am, because you got to have good papers and all this, and you got to be able to, write out everything. And my joke is I was a perfect F speller in school. And they said, how do you read? How do you pronounce? And I'm like, I said, no problem. I said, the word is what it is, but trying to get all the letters correct, trying to spell it, different story, but I know what the word is when I see it on paper. But it was the point of no help. And without help in life, we can't do anything. But
at least starting off, right? We need somebody to head us in the right direction.
And but I was baptized at 12-year-old in Stones Lake over next to exit 20. And the thing is,
what religion or denomination?
I was raised Church of God. Went to Bancroft growing up. And
did you know Joanne Bancroft?
Yeah. And Connie was her sister.
And Doyle Palmer, wasn't that her cousin?
Yeah, I'm kin to Bancrofts too.
Jerry? You know Jerry?
The vet.
The vet.
Know him. Don't see him a lot. I see him every once in a while.
Was he? I guess his family was from there, right?
Yeah.
Well, now, what was Joanne's daddy's name?
Paul.
Paul.
He raised strawberries and squash and beans.
Joanne died pretty young, didn't she?
Yeah. Connie just died like 2 to 3 years ago.
And Doyle's died.
Doyle just died last fall.
Last year or something.
Yeah.
End of a generation. Who's left?
I don't know. Well, there's still a lot of Bancrofts.
Elmer Earls.
Well, like I said, I'm kin, but I was talking to somebody else, and I said, oh, my Lord. I said, Bancrofts, Ramseys, Cantrells,
Bacon?
Sherlands.
Was there Bacons?
No. I don't remember Bacon being in any of that, but...
What about Glenn Cantrell?
Yeah, that was my kinfolk, because my mother was a Cantrell.
How was she related to Glenn?
Well, she was kin to Cantrells. In other words...
Glenn had a junkyard.
Glenn had the junkyard.
I used to go down there and talk to him, and he'd take a bottle of Coke, take the lid off, put it in the refrigerator, and drink it like an hour later. He liked them flat.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I've seen a guy, we worked at Cleveland Machine with me. This was years after my first encounter with the shop, but we had a Pepsi machine in there, and he'd take them Pepsis out and put his thumb over it, and Pepsi tastes flat anyway.
Yeah.
And he'd shake more of it out, and I'm like, he should just brought him a bag of sugar, got him a cup of water, and because that'd be about, I'm like.
Well, how did you end up doing the sandals? This here is an amazing, this is extremely well made.
Well,
You've got rivets.
Yep.
And this is, I guess, old tires?
Old bias-belted car tires. Bias-belted is the old nylon, rayon, polyester.
How do you know they don't have those little...
Steel?
Yeah.
They had a say inside the tire whether it's steel.
If it had steel in it, you couldn't use them. You have to use non-steel belted tires.
Yeah, somebody said, I got a bunch of steel belted tires, and I said...
do you cut them out like this?
Yeah.
How do you know what size they are?
I made up sizes when I first started out, then, but I'd start incrementing up half an inch or something like that, then come up with strap size.
This is extremely well made.
Oh, thank you. Well, I wound up, after the drill press thing, I wound up being their welder. His welder quit and led me into the table doing heliarc. And then he built a new building down past Barnell Nursery, and had a better shop, bigger shop, better lighting and everything. And he started getting me to do his fabrication work. So the thing is, things would come in and I'd weld it, but a better machine and everything. He had a 300 Lincoln AC, DC, straight, reverse polarity, TIG machine on it. And the thing is, with that big welding machine, it made a poor welder look good. But I learned well, but the thing is, then, been in the shop for quite a few years, I wound up repairing a machine that they broke plastic up in. We built the machine, but they put hot roll plate on the side of it. But DuPont. They'd inject molds, and people let the things run over, and they'd be a clump of plastic. So we built a machine for them. Well, I wasn't there at that time. They take a hydraulic ram, and they had 3 little slugs like this to press in that clump of plastic, and when they did, stuff would explode. Then I was there when the machine came back in. The sides of the machine was buckled pretty good. The welds were cracked, and I seen chunks of plastic hanging in wells. And I was supposed to cut the thing apart. So I'm digging all the plastic out. Didn't know it was going to about kill me. So I'm in a cube about as big, this big of the part of the table, with my head in it and all that stuff smoldering. So the thing is, but then I'd go home, be hurting. I'd come back in next day hurting. I finally got the machine built back. And by that time, I'd go in and man, I was hurting so bad, I'd pull my chair out from under the welding table and lay down on the table and cry. That's how bad I was.
Did you know what it was from? I guess you didn't know.
No, not really. And then I figured that out after I left the place, because I was barely walking, barely breathing, and pasty pale white. And when you see anybody pasty pale white, what usually happens?
They usually get sick.
You
right
bury
after,
them.
yeah.
And,
Color's the most thing that I
and
generally
Jesus
look at.
is the reason I did not die, because he had other plans for me. But I was down for 10 years.
From that?
From that. So, well, in other words, say 6, really down. Then when it got closer to 10, I'm getting to do a little more.
Well, what'd you do for 6 years?
I couldn't do nothing hardly. My wife bought earring bindings and things and said, I'm going to make me some earrings. And she brought them to me because I couldn't stay on my feet more than a couple hours a day.
But did you have workman's comp or whatever?
No, they said I was too smart to draw. So we suffered, in other words,
You
financially.
should have wore your clothes.
But I didn't. I was not this way then. I still wore necklaces and things like that. But then when I got closer to 10 years, I got where I could do more and more and more. But I would sit there and make earrings up, and I'd make.
So was that when you quit that job?
I had to quit because I couldn't even.
Looks like you could have drawn unemployment.
Doctors wouldn't help me.
What year was this?
85, 86, somewhere around 86, maybe 87. And, but I did have a craft in the world from Indian crafts and all that.
During that 10 years?
Yeah.
You had to do something, right?
That was therapy. I made honeysuckle baskets and things like that.
Is that where you got
Then
this?
I started doing them probably not right then. I wasn't doing that because that was hard. That was major work.
When did you? I noticed you don't have your name on it.
25 years ago was about when I started doing the sandals.
But I don't see your name on them.
No.
Looks like you'd put the brand on them.
Well, anybody knows, anybody that's bought a pair, they're like, where'd you get them, Elmer? Mm-hmm. And I've sold sandals off and on for years, but I was surprised when that guy said he was in Japan, and he still got a pair of sandals.
Yeah, I saw that on your phone. You sell these all the way to Japan.
Well, in other words, he had to be in the States to buy them.
Well, maybe.
But the thing is about trying to buy the sandals, people said, just send me a pair. Send me a pair of 9s. I said, is your foot wide, skinny, thick?
Do you have sizes of like size 9 wide?
That'd be that's a size 9. Mm-hmm. If you're a size 9, I'd say, I'll look at somebody's feet. Let's see your feet. Yeah, you're about a 9.5.
Sounds good to me.
Is that about right?
About right.
Okay. The thing is, and somebody says, you know what size I'm wearing? Yeah. I said, I've done enough. The lady was in the shop the other day and said something about them. I said, here. I looked at her foot and I said, you're about a 7. She said, 6, 6.5, 7. I went back on the shelf. There's a 7, brought it out, handed it to her. She put it on, and it fit perfect. And she said, and her mom says, I knew he made sandals. And she said, you've been holding out on me. You did not tell me he made sandals.
Is this one of your best sellers?
It's about like any merchandise. Mm-hmm. The right person comes along. Mm-hmm. So
now you were on that show, Back
Road Gold.
Back Road Gold.
With Corky Coker, and the first episode was The Hippie and the Judge.
When was this?
It was filmed in 2012.
Did they find you?
I knew the family for years.
Where are they from?
Chattanooga. Coker Tire Company.
Oh, so they decided to start their own reality TV show?
Yeah. And
it didn't do too good, I guess, right?
Well, it run eight shows, and but the thing was they had called my wife, and there's that guy in Japan.
Kyoto, Japan.
Said he bought him here in Cleveland, and
he doesn't know we're talking about him, does he?
But that's pretty good. Still got them over the years, and that had to be.
You couldn't wear these things out if you had an axe.
18 years ago. I got a friend.
When you made this, did you say I'll put this blue one here and the white, yellow? How do you?
I throwed all the stuff out, and I tried to lay it out to make it, not be the same.
It's obviously random.
Yeah. Well, in other words, if I just do it in a pile and I pulled it out like this, then it might be a lot of colors alike.
You may get more blues and more.
I tried to. That's all the colors I had, so I had to use what I've got. And I've got a few more colors now. I've got a little green and I've got a little purple, which I haven't cut into that yet to put into them. Mm-hmm. But
what would a pair of sandals like this cost?
They run $120. But the guy that I sold a pair to years ago, I said, how long you had the sandals? He said, 20 years. I've never had to do anything to them. And I said, what did I sell them to you for? He said, $30. I looked at him and I said, boy, I sold them to you too cheap. Because they never wore out. Mm-hmm. And the biggest part, somebody will throw them away, would be how they get rid,
So since you were sick from this inhaling this burning plastic, and couldn't draw unemployment or workman's comp, you were stuck at the house, and it forced you to start doing some crafts.
I started doing crafts. But being a fabricator.
Yeah, it all fits.
And in other words, I'd get off from work before I got sick. I'd go out, and that's when the street rod craze was going big time around Cleveland. Everybody wanted to build an old car, 48 and earlier, and I would go to their houses and do fab work on their cars.
Like in the early 80s?
Yeah. And so the thing is, I might have 3 or 4 or 5 cars going at the same time, but they buy parts. I go use the parts on their car. And they say, well, next I said, when you get the parts, call me. And if I only had a couple hours to work at their house, I'd go somewhere else and pull a couple hours somewhere else. So the thing is, but then when I got sick, I couldn't do nothing. And talk about nerves off the deep end, climbing the wall.
What were you thinking during that time?
I wasn't thinking nothing because, man, the thing is, when I got sick.
Were your nerves shot?
Oh, my nerves were shot. I lost memory. I'd be down in the garage.
How'd you keep from losing your house and everything?
It was paid for. Mm-hmm. Well, we lived in a, if you want to call it rundown trailer, the best we could do at the time. But when I started getting back on my feet real good, I had built the basement when I was years ago. and planned on putting a house on top of it. So after I got back on my feet after the sickness, I started building on the house.
Wonder how you got over that sickness.
Jesus.
It wasn't therapy or medicine.
Well, they tried to give me Zoloft for once. Well, in other words, I needed something for my nerves. Went and seen a doctor down in Chattanooga. I don't remember his name. And of course, long hair and all this. And the thing is, but when I got sick was when I started wearing my tie-dyes.
Why then?
I found out the point of the more colorful I got, the more the sarcastic people stayed away from me.
So you're not an old hippie.
Well, in other words, the state of mind, the hippies started out as Jesus freaks
What year?
in the 60s.
Were they a spin-off of the Beatniks?
Probably a spin-off of the Beatniks.
But different.
But different.
How old were you in the 60s?
I was born in 51.
So you were in your teens.
Yeah, see, 60,
No,
I would have been like, 61, I'd been 10.
You'd have been driving when the Vietnam War was going on.
Yeah, thank God my draft number,
You were
They
just a
stopped the
little
draft.
too young for that, weren't you?
I was within probably 10 or so of being drafted.
So
My
you
number
weren't.
was.
So you weren't a hippie then.
Well, in other words, like I said, the hippie state of mind is, leave me alone, everything's fine. In other words, don't give problems. Be kind to souls. But I had a little girl on the 450 yard sale one year says, when I grow up, I want to be a hippie. Mm-hmm. And she might have been 10. And I said, you believe in Jesus? And she said, yes. I said, use what Jesus teaches you as the hippie state of mind. Peace, love, and harmony. Big smile came across her face. Because the hippies started out as Jesus freaks. And this old guy came in our shop.
When did the hippies come about? When did you?
More so probably when late 50s, early 60s started getting into the movement of.
And they were for.
Peace, love, and
Yeah,
harmony.
like your belt buckle.
Yeah.
That's what is the peace, love, and happiness? Right?
But-
No. Yeah, peace, love, and happiness.
But the thing is, with the belt buckle, the soldiers supposedly coming back in from Nam in California. The hippies out there, and they were doing bad things like spitting on them and everything else. But the thing is, the hippies were wearing peace signs. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, they started calling the hippies chicken foots.
Because they go like this.
No, because, well, the thing is, the peace sign, without a circle around it, it's a chicken foot.
But see, the peace sign is like this.
Yeah, you throw a peace sign like this, but that's the peace sign.
It really should be like this.
Well, it's like victory, like what was the guy in England that always said victory, big old heavy dude.
So the hippie movement started out as a good idea, right?
Hippie movement started out as a good idea.
Did
But then it started getting skewed with all the radical-minded people saying, well, they ain't listening to us, we're going to push harder. And you see some of the movies where, they're portraying them doing bombings and all this stuff.
Did you ever know Raymond Woods? He was a real good friend of mine, and he was a old hippie. And I asked him why he wasn't a hippie anymore, and he said, "We lost." I guess he meant we just gave up.
Gave up would be about the point of it. But
you weren't a hippie through the 80s and 90s till you decided, hey, I've got to start selling things.
No, in other words, I was picked on through grade school and everything else.
Where'd you go to grade school?
McDonald. And, but the thing is, bullies would pick on me. And, of course, my defense of
Was that a normal thing then?
bullying,
Yeah.
yeah. Bullying was always with kids, you know. I was a little fellow, and bullies would pick on me. And when I had to go to a therapist, when they tried to make me, Bradley County tried to make me crush all my cars. That's another story. They start picking on me. I'd start yelling. Teachers would come running. What are you yelling about? They're picking on me. I don't see nobody. They ran when you started coming my way.
What grade were you in when they?
Probably around the 4th, 5th, something like that.
When did you quit school?
I quit in high school.
So 10th or something?
Yeah, somewhere around
Bradley
there.
High?
Yeah.
Right over here?
Yeah, the old Bradley. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right down there.
Did you ride the bus? Did you ride the bus to school?
Yeah. But it got better of not being bullied when I got older in grades.
Yeah, it wears off.
And, what,
Do you think as you get older, you look back, it really wasn't bullying, it's just the way you perceived it? Or was it really bullying?
well, they always, picked on you, always shoving you, always doing something like that, always saying something to hurt your feelings.
Where were the teachers then?
Wherever they were, who knows? They might be one out on the yard, but they can't see everything. But
Did they not care as much then?
I think they might have cared more in a way, because the thing is, if there ain't no bullying going on, the school's got a better feel to it. They can teach better without no problems. But another thing that I did to the kids that tried to bully me, they start to come pick on me, starting to say remarks and things. I'd run down the side of the bank behind the cafeteria over there, and there was poison ivy everywhere. I'm not allergic to poison ivy.
But they were.
And I go down in the middle of it, and I'm like,
Now
that's poison ivy. I said, come on.
This was during recess?
Yeah. So the thing is, they're like, come on in here. I'll rub it all over you. I said, I should have been smart enough to put some in my pocket.
Yeah.
I'd be like, come on.
Why aren't you allergic to it?
Jesus took well care of me. And my son, when he was growing up, Elmer II, he said, Dad, am I allergic to poison ivy? I said, nope. Is he allergic to it? Nope.
It's just in you, just genetics, I guess.
Yep. That's what my brother said about, he's had a couple of heart attacks, and he said, I said something to him about it, and he said, brother, your DNA is different from mine. I'm like, whoa. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because one person don't have it in the family, and another person does. And, but my family lifespan, my grandfather's side, he lived in his high 90s after having a appendix rupture in his late 80s or early 90s. And they drained him forever. And on my mother's side, they lived to, good long age. And Mom, I think she was somewhere around 89. So in other words, Jesus takes care of me that well, I'm going to be tickled.
So when do we have a picture of his place where he sells stuff? Where's your place at?
It's
York Road?
156 York Circle.
York Circle.
Southwest McDonald, Tennessee. I'm south side of the landfill.
Now you're good friends with Dan Gilley.
Yeah, I've known him for years. I remember Dan telling me once that, I watched you kids grow up. I don't know how old Dan is, but anyway. Then I was at a hippie festival in Athens, no, in Sweetwater. So I came out of a little festival and I headed down the road where it would come out at the truck stop up there on the interstate. What, like 56 or something like that?
Yeah.
Anyway.
No.
I don't know what little town. No, Von Earls.
No, yeah.
But anyway, the cops had somebody pulled over on the side of the road coming north. I headed down the road. I didn't know what speed was, so I did 45.
Uh-huh.
I didn't want to do 55 and it be 45.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've been at a hippie festival, and I used to use a lot of sunblock, and man, it get hot and sweaty and get in your eyes and burn your eyes, and they turn red. So in other words, anybody look at you, they think you're stoned or messed up. But anyway, I'm going down the road. I glanced in my rearview mirror, and I see a car turning around. And I see the two low headlights, and I'm like, oh, Lord, the cops are coming. So I seen the sign that said 75, and I turned my blinker on, and there goes the lights. And I'm like, so this young cop walks up and says, recently I pulled you over, your Volkswagen muffler's a little too loud. There was Harleys going up that road
He couldn't have heard
10
it.
times louder than my Volkswagen.
Yeah.
They was stock muffler. They just wanted some reason to pull me over. Next cop, I'm sitting holding the brake and the brake and the clutch.
When was this?
Oh shoot, 15 years ago. But anyway, I can even tell you the cop's name. But anyway, next cop walked up to my window. First words out of this guy's mouth was, "Get out of the car." And I looked over at him and I'm like, "Is there a problem, officer?" "Get out of the car." I'm thinking, boy, this guy's watched too many cop stories on TV. Because that's usually the way they're acting with people. And when he said that, I said, "Officer, if there's a problem, call the sheriff of Bradley County, Dan Gilley, and see what he tells you about me." I know Dan Gilley personally. I went to school with him. I said, "Good." I said, "I grew up with him." And he started, I'll be back, I'll be back. So he went back to his little cop car and he came back. Said, "I'm gonna have to give you a sobriety test anyway." So I cut it off. And I said, "Can I lock my doors?" I wasn't gonna reach behind the passenger seat.
Yeah, and I think you're gonna shoot him.
Yeah. So the thing is, I said, "Can I lock my doors? You got something you don't want me to see?" And I said, "No, sir, my premises," because it's a camper bus. So I reached back, clicked the door, and got out. You ever had to do the 30-degree leg lift? One leg, just stand there, it's supposed to be 30 seconds. Oh, they drug it out. I guarantee it was 3 minutes.
Be hard to do
My
that.
ankle's wiggling and all this. And the crazy thing about that,
Had you even been drinking?
Not on Sunday, no. It was Sunday night about 10 o'clock. Last beer I drank was like before I went to bed Saturday night. So
No.
do not, I'm a bad habit about drinking too much or really anything much at all if I'm going to drive and drink, because all it takes is one. I'm like, oh, please. But I had, for some reason, 3-4 months before, in the shower, I was doing that for some reason. Standing in the shower like this. It was like,
Just practicing.
like Jesus telling me I need to.
Yeah.
So it's like Jesus always puts things in my head. It's like self-preservation, but Jesus guided me to keep me out of things. But the thing is, like I said, I don't do anything to get in trouble. They just think yeah, the way I look and they're like, oh, please.
Yeah.
People says, well, what about flea market in Chattanooga? Down there, this girl that I knew had done tie-dyes. Girl walked up and she told the girl, said, I want to go out and smoke. She said, wait a minute, I'm going with you. Elmer, watch my booth. As she's starting to leave, says, what about him? Don't worry about him. Elmer's all right. The other girl didn't. You know, she's like, you're going to leave him with your booth?
You get much traffic at your house buying stuff?
It's kind of slim pickings in a way, but my remark is, Jesus is going to put the people in our path that needs to be there. And the thing is, we have a lot of people that comes in periodic that they'll look around the shop and everything. Then had one girl.
We got a picture. Let's have some pictures. You have any pictures of his shop?
We'll
show it. You can give us a tour.
One girl popped in and sat down.
Is that now? Where'd you get the name Hip E Beads?
Well, they always called me Hippie. So the thing is, my name's Elmer.
Why'd they call you Hippie?
Well, because I worked when I started wearing tie-dyes and all this. And,
were you a hippie?
Well, state of mind,
okay.
Yes.
All right.
So
that's your business?
Yeah, that's our new addition that Jesus put in our path. Of course, I got more stuff on the porch now.
Now is that all? That's all. What's the stuff hanging on the ceiling?
Well, that's the Papazon chair part that held the little mattress throw it went into the Papazon chair part. So this one was going to be burned on the 450 yard sale.
We got a better picture coming up here.
All right. But they was going to burn that chair, and it was brand new, but it didn't have the ring that it sat on, but it didn't have the mattress part in it. And I said, what are you going to do with this? We're going to burn it. And I said, can I have it?
Now, is that the front door?
That's the front door.
And what'd you say those things hanging were? Yeah. What are those things hanging?
There's patches hanging on the part that held the mattress pad, if you want to call it mattress pad, of a Papazon chair. And I had that thing for quite a few years.
What's that thing to the right? The little drawers. Is that where you have beads?
That's my bead cabinets.
You string beads?
Oh yeah, I'll string beads. I'll tie hemp. I'll make bracelets. It's whatever somebody wants that comes in.
Now hemp is marijuana, right?
No, hemp is the male cannabis plant, which
it's different.
Very, very, very same as nothing and THC.
Yeah.
And people says, oh, can we get high off this stuff? And I said, probably if you smoke a ton before you drop over dead from smoke inhalation.
What's that stuff on the top?
The top on them boxes are puzzles to that effect. Then there's tapestries and purses, and on the bottom you'll see white and black.
Hippie stuff.
Hippie stuff. That's towels with peace signs on it. Mm-hmm. And on that towel with all the white peace signs, there's one red peace sign. And somebody said, I said, got a red peace sign on it. I said, haven't you ever seen Indian beadwork? It might, be constant. Then they have one oddball color bead in it.
The Indians? Cherokee Indian?
And they say, well, they call it a worried bead. Mm-hmm. Because if you messed up and if you were that radical and you wound up getting the wrong color in and you're done, that would worry you to death.
So it's a matter of
It's the point.
it's the point that you just so. But
Kinda
why
like a
is it?
focal point. It's like, why is that?
See, I'd have to go back and fix the bead. That's my way.
Well-
But I should let the bead go.
You should let the bead go. One guy,
Would the hippie let the bead go?
possible, but the thing is, it's like with me, if I'm braiding and because I've got where I can sit and tie a hemp necklace and talk to you. And if somebody walked up and says, "Oh, Elmer, how much is the," when you'd be talking, I'd look around and say, "Oh, it's this much." And I go back to work and I start talking and I hear them, they say, "How much are they?" I had this happen at the show. And I'm like, "They're 15. Then go back, I'm still tying all that time. Then guys talking, then I hear them say, "Well, I want 2. So I put down my loom from the necklace, go over and get them 2, lay them on the table, and I say, "That'd be 30. Then go back to the conversation, go back to work, and they said, "How much is these 2? I have to dead out stop talking and says, "It's 30 for the 2. In other words, it's like, I'm talking and I'm doing this, and I gave you the price on these, and
Are you there all the time?
no, not all the time.
When you're not there, what are you doing?
If somebody says, "I've got a car, I need you to look at the wiring on it," or I've got a little bit of, I'm still doing a little welding and everything now. I'm getting back where I can stand it more. But I built a wood fire furnace 4 years ago. So now, a buddy of mine's a tree cutter. So he says, "I've got some wood out here if you want it." I go haul wood. Then at my age, I'm hauling wood down the hill on a hand truck. And my buddy, I got a wood splitter from him. We done some trading. And so I roll it down. If it needs split, but of course with my furnace, it's 3 foot wide, 4 foot long, about 3.5 tall. So I can put a 16-inch diameter, I call it stump in there. So
That'll burn forever, won't it?
it burns for quite a while, but the thing is,
Can you dampen it down where it burns it slow and that sort of thing?
mine don't even have a damper on it, but it sucks air around the doors, around the ash door anyway. And but
Do you live right there at your shop?
yeah, we used to be on the end of the house with the shop. And it was a 10 by 20, long stairway going up. And 2012, that was before, it was probably around February, we had found out one of the wall facing the road was trying to implode into the garage. So we tried to, I got a guy to come out and see about doing this, because they moved houses for years. And
That'd be May, right?
no, it was Robert, and they called the other one Papa Smurf.
Yeah. What's his name? He stays at Waffle House all the time.
Yep, they stayed at Waffle House all the time,
Yeah.
and Papa Smurf died. We lost a good soul there. But
Ray, no. What was his name?
I'll
He
think-
moved 3 houses for me.
Okay.
Took him forever. That's a whole different trade, isn't it?
That's a whole different trade.
Yeah.
Yeah, they was talking about moving the thing sitting in front of the old mall up there at the.
That's the one they moved for me.
They moved that house.
Yeah.
That's up on the.
Yep.
Yeah, they was talking
Yeah.
about coming up
Yep.
the road with it.
They have to get permits and know when to turn the lights on and
Carolines.
map out their route and get it approved and permits.
Oh my Lord.
Then when they get it there, they have to cover it up with plastic so it doesn't get wet while they're.
Then start lifting that thing up. Oh my Lord. I'm like, they had to lift that thing that high?
Yep, just jack it up 6 inches at a time. So now, I had never figured out exactly why the tie-dye and the colors and beads have to do with the 60s hippie movement. Can you connect all those for
Well,
me?
the beads probably what's the point of it was Native American.
But that's Native American,
That's
not
Native
hippie,
American.
not
but,
hippie.
But the thing is, that would have been.
Do you ever make those beads that instead of having a door, they have those long
Beaded
beads?
curtains?
Yeah,
Well,
beaded curtains.
Over the window a while ago
Yeah, we still have it.
on that.
Is that a beaded? Boy, I remember
That's a beaded curtain
that was a big deal at the
behind
time.
the chair.
What was that for? I mean, I remember going in. So right there to the left, that's a beaded curtain.
That's a beaded curtain behind the chair.
Now, what's the purpose of that?
It's more like you don't go back there until I say you can. In other words,
So
it's a divider for
it's
a
a
room.
mental barrier.
It's kind of in other words, it's a respect barrier. In other words, if somebody's at your door, came to your house, they don't just come in until you say, "Come on in."
That's an interesting term, respect barrier. That's what it is.
Because the thing is, these are my premises back here. You're welcome to sit down at my table or on my couch, but
To go there, you'd have to actually move some
you got to say,
beads and.
well, that I just hung up there for display over the window there.
But that's what they were for, the beads.
That's what I think they were for because it was like
Do
a
you make
door.
those?
No. I order and thing
But you
is,
could.
I could, but they'd be so expensive. Years back, oh shoot, around 20 years ago, they were all beads.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember.
Wood beads and all this.
Not 20 years ago, probably.
and
Longer than that, right?
Yeah, and before that, they were real nice beads.
I remember when it was a standard decor.
Oh yeah,
What year was that?
70s.
Early 70s.
Late 60s, early
70s.
70s.
And that came out of the hippie era.
That came out of the hippie era.
Now, why is that connected to hippies? Is it artsy? Because of
well,
art?
it's different than what Mom and Dad had.
Was that the idea?
Well, how do we rebel with our parents in a sense? We want a little different than what Mom and Dad had.
Whether it's good or bad, just different.
That's the way it seems, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's good or bad, that's the way it seemed. But the thing is, in other words,
Well, it was an innocent rebellion.
yeah.
Because I remember I was watching a documentary yesterday on the 1960s, and it talked about the beatniks and the hippies and the long hair, and that was a sign. If you had long hair, then you knew they were a hippie.
Or more of a hippie,
Yeah.
yeah.
But how did that? So the hippie movement was for peace, love, and happiness, which was against the Vietnam War, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Or was it just different because it was
Well,
rebellion?
in other words, I guess part of it was pulling off when you were growing up. Mom and Dad made you have a haircut, and whether you wanted one or not. And the thing is, then with the war and all that, it's more of a little rebellion than anything there. But the thing is, with the Vietnam War, then the thing is, most people out there that wanted the war stopped because they didn't want their brothers and sisters killed for the government. And the thing is, most people that was rebelling was long-haired people. Then the more tie-dyes got into it.
And why is that? Because of the arts? It was cheap art, maybe? Cheap expression?
Well, see, how's the definition of tie-dye? Is something like says something about rebellious, likes wild colors, and I'm like, crazy art, something to that effect is what the definition of.
So it was a rebellion.
It's kind of like a rebellion because, well, you see your mom and dad in this.
Wonder why
Back then?
a movement has to have a symbol
To make them distinct from the others.
Yeah, why is that? I mean, you can just about think of every type of movement, whether it lasted or didn't last, and they all had some mark. Like now, it's maybe masked, maybe it's not masked.
Tell me about it.
Maybe in the I don't even remember the '80s. The '80s were the long hair, but was the mullet, long hair,
yeah.
and then that's what I had. And then I don't know what the '70s were.
Got a neighbor that still more or less got a mullet.
Yeah. So, but wonder why they have to have some type of a mark.
Maybe to where they know who the other one is.
I guess. I mean, that's the only thing that makes sense.
I've been in grocery stores and you see another long-haired dude and beard and all this, and I'm like, man, do you do music festivals? Oh, I don't do crap like that. And I'm like, you want to look like the hippies, and you got an attitude, and you're like, you don't know who to.
The hippies didn't have an attitude, right?
Well, in other words, my old joke is, it's about like, hippie sitting on the beach, and the guy comes up and says, makes a remark to him, and the guy looks up and says, "Peace, brother." And the guy keeps poking him, or the soldier keeps poking him with a gun, and he says, "Peace, brother." And he does that 2 or 3 times, and the thing is, the guy keeps poking him, and I said, the hippie gets up, takes his gun away from him, puts him on the ground, and the hippie says, "I told you, peace, brother." Just leave me alone. It'll be fine.
I always think of Leave It to Beaver. They were raised non-hippies.
Oh, yeah.
You know, Wally and Beaver.
Well, that's supposed to have been in the 50s, in a sense, that era when they
Wally's
filmed it off.
When Wally was in high school, the people that were coming up several years behind him were the hippies. But it was a good movement, right?
It was a good movement, and people say, "These stinking hippies." And I said, "No, I don't stink unless I've been at a festival 3 or 4 days and they ain't got no shower."
Yeah.
But I said, the thing is, they said, "Yeah, but all these hippies, how they are." And I said, "Dude, you can't do that, because it's just like," I said, as the hippie movement went on, it got skewed in a lot of directions. Bikers clubs come out of it, and all
just like
this,
any other movement, it comes out with good intentions,
and it gets splits. So you got a bunch that wants just to leave me alone, man.
That was the original hippie movement.
And then like I said, it was Flower Children, and that's how it started into the hippie movement. But
what's I remember that term.
Peace Children they were more passive, or more want to be all happy and everything.
Now, wait, you got the Beatniks and the Flower Childs,
then the hippies.
So was the Beatnik? I remember them were on the Beverly Hillbillies, and they didn't work.
Well, how about Toby Gillis? You ever remember a show called Toby Gillis?
No, I only watched the old ones.
The guy that was on Gilligan's Island. Remember Gilligan's Island?
Yeah.
Gilligan.
He was Toby Gillis. I remember that.
He was the one that played a beatnik.
Now, he was a beatnik before. He was on that before Gilligan's Island, right?
Yeah.
So he was a beatnik.
Yeah, and he had his
he was on.
drums.
He played on the Beverly Hillbillies in the group, the Beatniks, playing the drums.
Yeah.
So that's where he got that.
So
but the Beatniks wanted everything free, right?
I don't know about that.
When did the Flower Childs come in?
That would have been after the Beatniks.
Which would have been about what year?
That would have been the early 60s, late 50s, early 60s.
Let's say that
because
was...
then 69, that's when there was major hippie movements. You know,
So the
somewhere
major
around
hippie-
7, 8, 9, 6, 7, 8, 9,
So the beatniks were, we will say, was early 60s,
early 50s maybe,
early 50s?
early 50s. Early,
No, that
early
was the
50s.
that was the
Flower Children
that was
would have
Happy
been-
Days with the Greasers.
Well, okay, the Greasers would have been before the Beatniks.
What were they called? They were Greasers. Is that what they called them? Yeah. Fonzie was a greaser. Yeah. Was that what they called him?
I think it was.
Or was it a
Greasers.
hood?
I think it was Greasers. Because, you know, they used a hood remark now more, but
Yeah, but that
greaser back then. Because
remember-
everybody always greased their hair out proper and,
I remember on Happy
and
Days
the pompadour hairdo. And
when Joni introduced Fonzie to her dad, she said, "He's a hood." The very first episode.
really,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
remember that.
So a greaser and a hood must have been the same thing. So let's say that was the end of the 50s. And so then let's say the beatniks were 60 to 63 or 2. They couldn't have lasted long. They couldn't afford it. Right?
If you want it
Yeah,
all free,
yeah.
it's like, he's coming again,
Yeah.
lock the door.
Yeah.
We'll go out the back.
So the Flower Childs, I'm not familiar with that.
Well, that was pre of the hippie
What were they
movement.
about?
It was just peace, love, and harmony for sure. But thing is, but what a guy came in and said he was working out of the country. He said, I came into California in '69. He was doing working what is the movement? The people went out and helped. All the kids went over to other countries and
Don't tell me.
anyway, he came back.
Eddie Botts did that.
But anyway,
Peace Corps.
Peace Corps.
Peace Corps, yeah.
He was in the Peace Corps.
When was that? Late 60s?
He said that was '69 when he came back into California from working out there, and the soldiers were coming in and all this. And he said he'd go down. He made a remark about my shop. Says, "You say it's a hippie shop?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Where is all the Jesus stickers and Jesus stuff?" I'm like, "Dude." He said, "Where is it?" I said, "If you know what they had in those shops then," I said, "you show me and I'll have it made and I'll put it back in my shop." I'd love to have, authentic style stuff from then when it was Jesus people.
But let's discern the difference between Flower Children and hippies. Because I don't know.
It might have been the Flower Children were more of the Jesus freaks than the hippies, but when it started fading in, they still had that mindset. But then, the later it got, the more radical it got.
So the hippies were a more radical Flower Child.
I think that would have been a more radical child because you hear the song saying love ends
Yeah.
and all this.
The Flower
And that was
Children
the
were, and
hippie
it
movement.
was free love.
Yeah, and the thing is,
So the Flower Childs were really not into that.
That was
They
been
were
more of the Jesus.
the Jesus movement.
Yeah,
And then
The peace-
Now, where did the hippies get their name? What was
that
that?
I don't know.
I mean, I don't know what hippie would be.
I don't either.
I guess hit and in style. We use
That's
hip
not
as
me,
in style, but maybe that came from the hippies.
Like you said about how did I get my name for the shop?
Yeah.
They called me hippie. And
How long
my
have they
name's-
called you hippie?
For 50 years.
So you are a hippie.
So in other words, I wore necklaces like the liquid silver, turquoise, and all that. I always wore beads. So the thing is, in other words,
That was a symbol.
that was a symbol of because how many guys 50 years ago wore necklaces?
No, I'd say it was a
Very
rarity.
few.
Only the hippies.
In other words, and my old joke is you had to be secure.
Yeah. Okay, I'm looking up right now the definition of a hippie. According to Webster, the definition of hippie, a usually young person, which you're out there, who rejects the mores of established society as by dressing unconventionally or favoring communal living and advocates a nonviolent ethic. Broadly, a long-haired, unconventionally dressed young person.
Well,
So you're an old hippie.
I'm an old hippie, but a communal point, no.
Why did that come into?
I guess they throw that in there because the point of they were saying the free love movement and all this stuff, you know, communes and all that.
Do you think that the beatniks, the flower childs were the remaining people of the beatniks, and the hippies were remaining people? Because that was only a 10-year period. Somebody had been 15 to 25 or 14 to 24. And the hippies were so the hippies were sort of, in my view, a combination of the beatniks and the flower childs, and that's how the communes came about, because that was part of the not working.
Yeah.
Maybe.
That sounds, you know.
But what you're saying is, what you take from it is the flower child, the Jesus lovers, Jesus followers, are the flower childs, and the hippie movement of the unconventional peace, love, and happiness. That makes sense?
Yep. Well, you know, like I say, with me, it's being bullied in school and all that. The thing is, all I wanted to find is total peace, no aggravation, no none of that. But it's like when I about died and started getting back on my feet from the smoke poison. I asked ministers to talk. All I got was attitudes. And somebody said, well, what did you do? I said, I went and hung out with the hippies and Jesus, man, and look what happened. And they're like, what?
But that was prior.
Prior what?
You said you hung around with the hippies.
Well, that was after I got, you know, coming out near death. That was in that.
You always wipe the lid off first?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, never tell what's on it. Depends if it's open or if it's in a box, it's more clean than it is with the little plastic deals. And you don't want to drink anything after rat pee got on.
No.
Because the thing is, they can injure you pretty good.
You got me cleaning mine.
But the thing is, I found out going out there. That's when I really started going out to hippie festivals and all that, when I came out near death. So
After 6 years into your breathing problems?
I started, well, really it was about 10 years before I really got where I could get on my feet and start.
So why did you
traveling.
go with them?
What?
Back to the hippie festivals?
Well, I never went to hippie festivals before that.
Oh no, so why did you start?
Well, in other words, it's like the people in the church, it had a hard time getting, in other words, I got less concern of the people in the church.
I think the church
They were
sometimes
more of
is.
an attitude.
I think the church is sometimes afraid people are going to ask them for money. Right?
I didn't know. I wasn't going to ask. I wasn't asking money, but the thing is, I needed to talk. I needed kindness.
When at what period?
That was
in your life?
When I was coming out near death. That's when I needed the kindness of people. And the thing is,
What did you need to talk to?
You know, all the hurt and everything that you're going through, being about down and about dead and all this. a conversation with a little laughter and cutting up. You don't really have to say anything, but you can get some laughter in the conversation, and the thing is, you feel better no matter how bad you feel or how much you hurt.
Why is that?
The Bible says it's medicine for the soul.
What is medicine?
Laughter. So the thing is, and how many people in the church are you going to see that you can sit down and talk and have a conversation and get a good laugh out of and all this, and they're sitting there like, and one guy told me once this, he got up in his church and said, I don't know what's wrong with you people. You just got the worst look on your face. Said, you should have the biggest smile on your face of anybody in the world, because you're going to heaven. You walk in the church and what do they look like? I'm like, oh my Lord.
So you're saying at this period in your life, you were just looking for somebody to talk to.
Yeah. And the thing is, but
What do you want to talk about?
It didn't matter. See, when I was doing all them craps and I started going out to places like that, I found out that when I was making things or making necklaces and things, they would come up, want me to make them a necklace. I got to talk to them. I got to laugh a little bit.
Now that's interesting. You were getting a sense of community.
It brought me, in other words, me making necklaces and things and selling these trinkets brought people to me to talk. Because you'd have a little bit of conversation, as they were starting to buy something.
Why is that important?
My remark is you can't have enough friends in this world. And Jesus says, spread the kindness. Love your brother and sister as you love yourself. You show more kindness to these people, they show you more kindness. But there are angry people in this world that they think the sarcastic remarks and the anger is the way is normal. And I don't like sarcastic remarks. In other words, it's just like it's putting hurt in me hearing all this stuff. So the thing is, I'm like, I want away from the angry people. So, but that was part of the bullying part in a sense, because I heard anger stuff coming out of the kids that picked on me. So the thing is, when I got around, like I said, the hippies and all this, and the Volkswagen people, and somebody told me, says, Volkswagen shows, it's where the hippies hid. And I'm like, cool.
So during this period of your life, you just wanted somebody to say,
brother, it's okay.
What's okay?
It'll be better.
What's okay?
Life will be better. It'll get better.
What if Ed had said, it's not going to get better?
Well, I don't know what would have been then.
But would you have still felt okay that somebody was...
I probably wouldn't have wanted to deal with that person again. If they say that it ain't going to get no better, I'd be like, no.
But what if they said it's not going to get any better, but it's okay? Does that make sense?
I don't know, but I don't know how I would have reacted, but I understand where you're going with
it. Would it have just been somebody to talk to? A voice, or not a voice, but...
Well, a voice is a good word for it, because the thing is...
No, but the voice, well...
Because the thing is, you can talk all you want to the wall, but you're just talking to something that is not going to answer you back, not give you any feedback.
You know what I think it is? I think it's a matter of talking to somebody that doesn't say you're necessarily right, but they at least acknowledge that you believe you're correct. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
In other words, you may not agree with me, and I may not be right, but it's good to talk to somebody that believes what you're saying, at least believes that that you think what you're saying is correct. I have so many people say, "Oh, that's not right. You don't know what you're talking about." Well, I may not.
May not, but that's what I feel.
That's what I feel. And at least acknowledge that that is the way I feel.
Yeah.
Whether it's right or wrong, whether I'm correct or incorrect, at least don't question my truthfulness in saying that's what I think.
In other words, I was at a hippie festival, and this guy, I give crosses out. And the thing is, I gave a lot of hippie festivals and Volkswagen shows and all this, and offered one to one guy, and he says, Jesus got up on a soapbox and blah, 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 and he was raving on about it and all this, and man, I mean, pretty intense. And I'm like, then when he got to a low, I said, brother, we only know what we're taught. Okay, he started in again, but it wasn't as radical, wasn't as loud as it was the first time. Then when he got to a low, I said, brother, we only know what we're taught. He started again, but it was more mellow than the first two times. Then when he got done, I said, brother, we only know what we're taught. And the thing is, when he walked off, he wasn't mumbling anything or anything. I didn't give him a problem on what he had to say. I just told him, I said, we only know what we're taught.
Explain that. What do you mean by that?
Well, in other words, when you're growing up, how did you learn?
The left side, the water was hot?
How did you learn anything?
Well,
Mom and Dad taught you.
Yeah.
In other words, my dad always told us, said, if it was cold outside, you come in the house, pull that coat off before you freeze to death. Did you ever hear that?
Yeah, and I never have wondered till just now. That doesn't make sense, does it?
Oh, it makes perfect sense.
Pull that coat off before you freeze to death.
All right. You got a thick coat on and you were fairly warm outside, correct?
Yeah.
You come in the house, you still got that zipped up. You got heat in that house, but this coat is still cold from being out there. Mm-hmm. It's warm on the inside, but it's cold on the outside. So you're standing in and you go up next to the heater with that coat on, that heat's going to push the cold into you because it's trying to warm that coat up.
Come inside before you take that coat off before you freeze. Come inside, take the coat off before you freeze to death.
See, when you come in the door, Mom and Dad say, get that coat off before you freeze. But it would drive the cold into you.
But we only know what we've been taught. Do we know anything through experience? Or is that...
We've experienced, yeah, that is being taught by something we've done.
Oh, I see.
And either it went bad or it went good, and says, well, if it went bad, you're like, I know not to do that again.
But when you say we only know what we've been taught, what's...
It's the influence of all the people around you. And if you only heard negative about Jesus, you're only going to expel negative. But if somebody in the church treated you bad, then it's like you're thinking that that's how Jesus is going to treat me because the way the people in the church did me.
Well, that brings me to mind of the hippies. They thought it was a bad thing. Our generation, they were hippies. But what you're portraying to me is it was a good movement originally.
It was a good movement, but everything gets skewed. And I told people, I said, you know, the hippie movement is like the churches. If the hippie movement stayed on Jesus' side,
now that's a good
instead
point.
of skewing, it's like the churches. If everybody believed in Jesus the way they should, we'd have one church.
What church would it be?
Christianity.
Not a label?
There wouldn't be no Baptist, Methodist, Church of God.
Believers.
It would be believers in Jesus Christ. But the
Everything
thing is,
else has just been skewed.
everything
as
else
you
has been
say,
skewed.
by human nature.
And how many times, and I've said this, which I might get my tail whooped for it, but I've came off with this remark too many times probably, but I said, I'm going to start my own church because you're making all the money. What do you think about that? You understand where I'm
Well,
coming from?
that's
with
a
that?
reason to skew it, is for business, for profit.
But-
And some of them actually are not for profit. They're actually truly wanting
Right.
to spread.
Right. Want to spread Jesus.
Yeah.
But of course, and somebody said, well, why do I have to pay tithes? The tithes is really, if it's used right, is to keep the church up and keep everything to where the church is comfortable for you to come in. And if we got money, and the thing is somebody truly needs, then the thing is we can help somebody.
Well, really, the only example of giving money was, or the few examples was, it says, what was it when he was writing the letter to the Corinthians and said, lay up in store so there'll be no gathering when I come. So in other words, it wasn't really just for profit. It was just,
To have in case the church needed it for
yeah,
something.
for when he came.
Well, but people says, well, the church just wants your money. Well, the Bible says give your 10%, give Caesar his, and give the church 10.
Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and render unto God what is God's, right? Pretty good, huh?
So the thing is, what does that mean? You pay your government taxes, you give to the church. But the thing is, one guy said, if you gave, how did he put it? If you gave 10%, said if you do it in hours, doing God's work in hours, it's like 2 hours and 40 minutes or something like that, 24 hours in a day. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, the church can't live off of just people doing good work. The church has got to have money to be able to keep the lights on, the heat, and
Nothing wrong with that, right?
nothing wrong with that. But it says to give what your heart feels.
Do you go to church somewhere now?
Temple Baptist.
Where-
We just started back this morning.
Where are they located at?
Harrison Pike. There's Philippi next to the interstate. Keep coming west. There's a bar hall on the right out there.
Now,
right
let me
before
get my
Temple.
bearings straight. Which interstate?
75.
75. Or which
Philippi
exit?
is on.
Which exit?
Philippi ain't got no exit. That Prospect exit. We're
All
coming
right,
off
all right,
Emmett
so-
Street, I should say.
Yes,
and
Emmett
Harrison
Street.
Pike.
You go past the interstate, and where's
Cross over
Philippi?
Philippi is right before you cross over the interstate.
Okay, yeah, that's a pretty big church, isn't it?
Yeah, real big church.
Yeah, big. So
And-
you go down to where it's
But I come,
White Oak
The-
splits off.
I come in back roads by the landfill out that way. I'll pass Mount Olive going to back roads.
Have you ever noticed the landfill's smelling?
Oh! It was worse 6 years ago.
Has it gotten any better,
Yeah.
or you just got used to it?
No, you don't get used to it. You get poisoned with it. Because the thing is, we put up with it so strong. About 6 years ago, they were bringing in stuff from BASF in Chattanooga, which is chemical waste. Mm-hmm. And I guarantee it was sulfuric acid.
What's that a byproduct of?
Well, they use acid for all kinds of processing. Mm-hmm. And one guy said, man, they process a lot of stuff with sulfuric acid. And I'm like, but the thing is, and I told them, or I told one commissioner that it's acid. And he said, you don't need to use that word acid. Now he uses the word acid.
What word are you supposed to use?
The
Why do
thing
they want
is,
to tell us what you? Why do they want to tell us what words we can use?
But he's this guy. I don't know if I should use his name or not, but anyway, I won't. But
Because you're a hippie.
no,
Because you're a hippie, you won't use it.
no, I just don't want to drag his name in to get him
Yeah.
get sarcasm
Yeah.
or get him down the road and all
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
But since this is going to air
Yeah.
2 weeks from now, I'll talk about it because the thing is, they're supposed to be voting on
It'll be-
air monitors
Oh.
tomorrow. Funding the air monitors to check and see what the air is like out there.
Well, that's progress, isn't it?
That's progress. But they are working harder to keep stuff out of the air. The landfill is. Because the thing is, they know if a true monitoring is done, they probably want to shut them down or something. Because stuff will come out of that landfill at night. It's so harsh, it's unreal.
What do you mean at night?
In other words, it was like a fisher or whatever will open up, little cavity open up, and
Oh,
the
I
stuff
see. Yeah,
expels
yeah.
out,
Yeah.
and it can get pretty harsh, and it's an acid smell. But anyway, in 2019, well, 2015, 2014, that's when the sulfuric acid was. It was so bad that we had, I got up one Saturday morning, somebody wanted to know about a part, and I went down in the field. If I'd have tripped and fell coming back, I would not have had the air to get me off the ground. I was heaving for air. And I called the county, see if they'd send somebody out and tell us what this crap was. Well, call 911, they'll send somebody out. I called 911 and I said, I need a person out here to tell us what this is in the air. They sent a whole fire truck. The fire truck rode around, and they couldn't find no fires. This is when there was fires burning on the side of the interstate.
So you thought there was a fire of some sort?
No,
Oh.
I knew it was the acid stuff. I wanted somebody else to confirm, to understand what we're going through. And so the fire truck pulled up in front of the house. The captain got out. I won't even tell what fire hall number. The captain brought one guy with him, left him on the porch, and the captain's standing in the middle of our doorway, and I couldn't hardly stand to breathe this stuff, and he's standing right in the middle of the doorway. And I said, close that door. I can't stand this stuff. I can't breathe. And I'd start to close the door, and he'd take the door and slam it into the chair that you seen on the picture. He done that like 4 times.
Why?
He was bullying me. I said, if I'd have had forethought, I said, or whatever you want to call it, I said, I would have called 911, said, I got somebody abusing the elderly out here. But the wife heard what was going on. She walked out there and said, this door's got to be shut. And she closed the door. He did not attempt to yank it out of her hand. But he's standing inside still mouthing off to us about there ain't no fire and blah, 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 blah. And I said, I didn't say that was a fire. I said, I wanted somebody to come out here to see what this stuff was. And he's still mouthing off. And Jesus put the right word in my head to tell this guy. And the remark was, they said it was protocol. He changed his attitude 100%. He dropped the attitude he had. Then I started telling him how he was treating us. So then it took me a week to get a hold of one of the fire chiefs. Fire chief didn't want to call me back. Then I finally, last time I called, I said, "Do you ever return your phone calls?" Then he finally did, and I told him all the story, but he ain't going to do nothing to his fire chiefs and all that. But you don't treat individuals that way because we're having a problem out here.
That's what they're paid for, right?
That's what they're paid for. The cops, the teachers, the firefighters, and all this. But I was told once, EMS was trying to push somebody up a bank on one of their sketchers or whatever. Push them up a bank, and there's firefighters over there, and they asked some of the firefighters to help them. Or cops won and said, and the guy says, "That ain't our job." If you're paid by taxpayers' money, I don't care what flipping position you're in, your taxpayer money. You should help the others when they're in need. If you don't, to me, that shows the kind of person you are. You got to have kindness in you. And the EMS has got more kindness because I could not deal with, going out to a wreck and all that.
Oh, I couldn't either.
That would hurt me so bad it'd be unreal. I wouldn't be able to sleep, man. But the thing is, another department won't help another department that's getting paid by the same people.
So you're saying if you're out here and the policeman's out and there's a lost dog, he should say, "I'm helping out the city because I'm paid by the city. I have time to catch this
Well, in
lost
other
dog."
words, if he's seen the dog going down the road, all he's got to do is call the dog catcher and say, "We found it." But that door, it's going down this road.
Oh.
But the thing is, when this was like a wreck. And the fire people there, the cops are there, EMS is there, and nobody would help these guys having a hard time trying to push the gurney up the side of the road.
Yeah.
Somebody out of the kindness of their heart should have helped, although they're being paid by taxpayers' money. And yeah, I could probably get a lot of feedback from some of these people, but the thing
You
is,
got a
if they
point,
do,
though. You have a point.
because the thing is, taxpayers' money. And they all got unions, and that's one of the faults of it right now. The thing is, and somebody said something once, and I said, "All right, if they're better than we are, why don't you put everybody on the county payroll where we all can be protected by your unions and all this and get the same benefits and retirement funds that you get?" We can't do that.
You mean a union for people that don't have a union? Why not?
Why not?
Why not?
Why not? We get a retirement because thing is, if you're in service, what you get? You get a pension from the city when you retire. You get a pension from the government when you retire.
And you pay it in, right?
And the thing is, and we're the ones that's on the poor scale. All these people in public office getting better pay than most people out here in the real world.
And we don't have an opportunity to join a union.
No. So
I
in
never
other
thought
words,
about it that way.
the thing is, in other words, my wife, in other words, I should say average pay anymore somewhere around what? 30,000, 35,000 maybe.
35, yeah, 40. 35 probably average.
Okay. What is public officials average?
No clue. 35, I guess, maybe, right? 40.
I'd figure more than that, but the thing is, they get vacation pay, holiday pay, sick days, and what do they get? They get all paid.
So it's another 10,000 anyway or something.
Yeah, you're getting a whole lot better pay. And the thing is, we're out of work. Did we get paid for that day?
No.
So the thing is, everyone in public office that's getting a pension and getting all the benefits and all this, well, probably a lot of people are going to give me down the road for this, but if they do, then that's their problem.
Who cares?
The thing is, but treat everybody the same. But if you're making more than us off the taxpayers' money, you should be kinder to the ones that are not getting any benefits.
It's an overall attitude.
It's overall attitude. The attitude is the bad part about
Yeah.
it. The thing is, and I said this to a cop, I think. I said, without the taxpayers, you wouldn't have a job. Well, I pay taxes in. I said, yeah, but you can't live off what taxes you pay in. I said, it takes all these poor people to pay taxes. And I said, every time public officials get a pay raise, all the poor people out here gets a pay reduction. Because they raise taxes to
Do
make
more
up for all
people work for the government today than they did 50 years ago? I'm curious.
Oh, probably.
Because government doesn't get smaller. Right?
My buddy needs a job.
Have you ever known anything that government did that got smaller?
Our paychecks,
But I mean, in theory, the government gets bigger all the time.
there it gets bigger.
In theory, it's going to be just everybody's going to be working for the government, I guess.
Well, if everybody worked for the government, everybody would be paying taxes. Everybody would get treated the same. But of course, they don't want that.
That would be socialism if everybody's working for the government, right? I guess.
I don't know, but the thing is, we get the same amount as, well, in other words, this would be communism if everybody got the same paycheck if you were, no matter what level you were.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you know, when I was working in this stove foundry, found out the pulling off, a lazy person in a lot of places, they're making boss sell them.
Why is that?
They can't get them work any other way.
Yeah. That's the truth, isn't it?
So you put them in a job that they don't have to do a lot. They just keep up and make sure everybody's doing their job. Because they can stand around and do that.
Yeah, and sometimes people that are a little bit more lazier are a little bit more, they'll find a way to do something a little more easier or organized, I think, too.
Well,
So there is a benefit to being lazy.
well, I'm not lazy, but the thing is, if you give me a job, well, good example, when I worked at the machine shop. At my welding table, I had a chair slid under it. When I was sitting there with the TIG torch and welding small parts up, I'd sit down on my chair and I'd do this. Why stand up when you're not going to be stable and you might mess up trying to build that?
Yeah. That's not being lazy. It's just,
It's working smarter. Another one was, that's where the boss really chewed me on this one, or tried to. We used to make go-kart parts for the company in Chattanooga, Goonie Golf. And they take a hardened boat, they cut the head off of it, cut it round, taper it, or we can weld it on a U-joint. But we had to drill a hole in it for a carter pin where, you know, make sure the bearings and everything, the nut didn't come off.
yeah.
And the, so he made a fixture, little old bitty drill press, and you slide the boat in, and you're standing there and doing this. You got to clear the bit quite a bit. If them chips build up, being hard chips, they'd snap the little 1/8" bit off. So you keep clearing it, and then when you get it done, you throw it over in a box. So the thing is, I'm standing there, and the thing is, only thing you're working is your arms. I went and found me a chair. Pulled the chair up, set it down with back on it. boss said, "Why are you sitting down?" I said, "Let me tell you." I said, "All I'm doing is working my arms." I said, "I can stand and do this, but I will not be able to work as efficient or as fast as I can sitting down, because the thing is, I'm only using part of my energy doing this." I said, "Standing up, you're going to get tired and you ain't going to work as hard." And I said, if I wanted to take a break, I didn't have to stop, take a break. I just set me a Coke over here, need a drink,
Yeah.
start drilling again. I didn't have to go down over at picnic or over at the table and sit down and, oh man, I'm half rested, if you want to call it that.
I noticed you
it
drove
would
with your big box truck in. What's that for?
Well, I do vending,
Vending?
yeah, merchandise, sell stuff. But the reason I'm driving it, my radiator on my Town and Country
Oh.
died. I'm like, I drove it to church. Well, I found that out Saturday night. Steam coming out of it, and I'm like, no, Friday night. Then Saturday, I got my radiator gauge out, or to pressurize it, put it on it, started pumping it up, and the thing dropped a little bit pretty quick. Then it stabilized and just barely would move. And I got shining my light down, and I could see the water saying, real slow. But it dumps enough out that when you go to stop, it gets on the manifold and all this, and I'm like, no, I'm not gonna, I don't, breathing antifreeze smoke is not good, or fumes.
If you could sell these for $120 a pop, I wouldn't fool with a radiator.
Well,
You ought to be
I
able to
gotta
sell
fix
these.
my car.
These are really something.
We can put you in a pair, man. like I said on Back Row Gold, when I raised my foot up and I said, "Do I get to keep the tires?" "No, I like the tires, but yeah, but that's what I make my sandals out of."
Do you get many hits on your website?
I don't have a website. I've just got a Facebook store in a sense.
Oh.
But people say, few people told me this, that you need a web store.
Yeah.
I said, no. I said, why not? I said, there's too many people out there sell the same thing I do. I said, the thing is, I said, it's crazy to say it this way, but I said, with the people coming in my shop, I said, if they ever meet me, is the point. I said, the people comes in the shop and says, "Oh, Lord, Elmer, oh, he can talk." Or they're like, "You got to meet Elmer." At festivals, they'll drag more people in to meet me. And the
Because
thing
your
is-
colorful clothes.
No, I think it's
Why?
attitude.
Oh.
But I'll meet people at, shows that, man, it's just like I've known them all my life. In other words, and my remark of that is they got more Jesus in them than most. Because it's, but when I do vending at shows, people walk up and say something like,
Do you sell these at the show?
yeah,
I noticed you put these rivets, what I would say is backwards, but that's so this won't scratch your foot.
yeah. But people at shows will say, "I bet you do good out here. I bet you make a lot of money out here at these shows." Then I'll come off with, "You got to understand." And then they started looking at me funny, and I said, "Jesus takes care of all the money. All I got to do is laugh, cut up, and talk about Jesus." And I said, on top of that, He's going to give me what He wants me to have. And I said, on top of that, the money is not the important thing. The people are. If I can get a soul a little closer to Jesus, that's more important than any money, because the thing is, or if I can make a friend, that's worth more than money. Money is really nothing. But we got to have it to pay the bills.
It's just what me and you agree it is.
That's right.
Where can people find these shoes and other things that you make?
Hippie beads.
I'll go on the internet or?
No, I have to come to the shop. But I guarantee, if everybody that's ever had one of my cards that travels I-75, I'm only like 2 miles off the interstate on the west side. Yeah, there's the card. And the thing is, if they would pull their card out, I gave like 3,000 cards a year out for 16 years, except in 20 I did not give.
What's the E
500
for?
out.
Hip E beads. Hip Elmer.
In other words, you read it quick, and what's it say?
Hippie beads.
But it says hip E beads. Elmer's hip.
Yeah.
Like I said, I played on it, and I'm like, my shop, hippie, Elmer. Oh, I got beads. Oh, hip E beads, man.
Well, I'll say this: being in the construction business, this is as good a quality of things that stuff that I've seen. It's like a baseball glove.
I know. They've got better over the years, like I've said. But see, the reason those are, I call them my tie-dye sandals. When
Do they bend pretty good when you walk?
if you wear about that size, put it on.
Would they wear as good as this?
Probably better. You ain't gonna have them for no 10 year. But when my buddy that does my tie-dyes, like I said, Michael Wallen, Groovy Strings, he made this suit, 3-piece, and gave it to me for a Christmas present.
Did he get any prison time?
Well,